one of the best ways to get a national health care system is to take an existing system like we have, an existing single-payer system, Medicare. Medicare runs on between 2 and 3% overhead, depending on whether or not you include government buildings and things in that overhead. So at the most, a 3% overhead. Health insurance companies are capped at a 20% overhead by Obamacare. They used to run 30, 35% overhead in some cases. Of course, that 20% overhead means it's costing a whole lot more. So the thing that the health insurance company, and frankly, I have to give some credit to George W. Bush, because I think that they all saw this coming back in 2003 when they, quote, reformed Medicare. What they saw coming was the possibility that Medicare could become our national health care system, and they wanted to add a private component to it, lickety-split, as fast as they could, so that if Medicare became our national health care system, there was still a giant space there for private health insurance companies to make a fortune. So in 2003, what they did was they took Medicare Part C, which had been around for a long time, and was like, it was a little crack in Medicare that could be filled in with private health insurance under certain very rare circumstances. And they said, we're going to expand this little crack to be all-encompassing. Anybody can buy one of these health insurance, these private for-profit health insurance policies. And instead of calling them private for-profit health insurance, we're going to let the companies call them Medicare Advantage. They're not Medicare. They're not subject to the same rules of Medicare. Doctors don't have to accept them. They can refuse to pay for certain doctors. They can refuse to pay for certain hospitals. In fact, they all basically work that way. They have in-network systems and out-of-network systems. They pre-approve things. None of this happens with Medicare. All right, if you've got Medicare, you go to the doctor. Nobody needs any approval. You get tests. Nobody needs any approval. You go to the hospital. I had surgery. Nobody had to check with anybody. But if I had had Medicare Advantage, which are actually not Medicare, these are private for-profit health insurance plans, then I would have had to jump through all those hoops, and I would have had to be sure that my doctor was actually in the program. And if the hospital had, for example, an anesthesiologist, this is one of the more common ones, who was a contractor to the hospital and therefore not part of the hospital network, and after my back surgery, I might have ended up with a $10,000 bill for anesthesiology. This commonly happens in the United States for people who are on private health insurance policies under 65 or on Medicare Advantage policies over 65. So what they did was they built out this Medicare Advantage thing as a way of building, in 2003, the Bush administration and Congress, as a way of establishing a beachhead inside Medicare, or what looked like it was inside Medicare, so that if we ever went to Medicare for all, they would already have the upper hand. And in fact, because the Medicare Advantage plans are so unregulated, when you're healthy, they offer you all kinds of goodies. Hey, free rides to the doctor. You want meals? We'll give you meals. You want $100 a month? We'll give it to you instead of you paying us. Well, you got $0 payments. I mean, we've all seen the ads, right, on TV with Joe Namath and other TV stars or other stars. And yeah, sure, you can get all that stuff, but wait till you get sick. They have these two policies, I don't mean like insurance policies, these two systems essentially that the health insurance companies use with these privatized Medicare, so-called Medicare Advantage programs. They're called cherry picking and lemon dropping. And cherry picking is where they offer things that are incentives to people who are healthy to get into the programs. For example, free gym membership. You know, that appeals to healthy people, so they're more likely to sign up for these Advantage programs. On the other hand, once you start getting sick, after you've been on the program for 5 or 10 years and you're now in your mid-70s or your early 80s and you're starting to get expensive, then they do what's called lemon dropping. And lemon dropping is where they basically make it miserable for people to the point that they give up and go away and go back to regular Medicare once they get expensive. They make you jump through multiple, instead of having to jump through 2 hoops to get your surgery approved, you now have to jump through 5 hoops. I mean, there's no limit, essentially, to what they can do because it's so minimally regulated, Medicare Advantage. And they've reached now A third of Americans. I tell the story in the book about a friend of mine. I call him Sam in the book. It's not his real name, but he's a guy that back in the 70s, myself and some friends of mine in New York City used to hang out with down in Greenwich Village, and I used to do a lot of business in New York, and I used to spend a lot of time in New York in the 70s. And he was just a couple of years younger than me. And last year, while I was writing the book, in fact, I got a call from a mutual friend of ours. I hadn't heard, from Sam literally since probably 1975, 76, something like that. It had been, 40 years or something like that. And my friend told me that Sam was having a tough time. He turned 65. He went to sign up for Medicare. He got hopelessly confused Googling it because he was just overwhelmed with all this Medicare Advantage sales pitches and everything else. And he couldn't figure out how to sign up for actual Medicare with the federal government because the federal government doesn't have the budget to pay for search engine optimization and to pump out thousands of papers and ads from think tanks and ad agencies to litter up the internet. And so he just gave up. He said, screw it. I just turned 65. I'll figure this out in a couple of months. But he was having trouble peeing, as in urinating. So he went to a local box. I mean, he'd been healthy his whole life, right? In fact, he didn't even have a regular doctor. So he went to a local doc in a box, one of these emergency medical care places or urgent care centers that was run by a large hospital network. And said, I'm having trouble urinating, what's going on? They took some blood and they came back and he had a PSA that was through the roof. I mean, it was so high that not only was it a certainty that he had prostate cancer, or his prostate was just like, in some kind of raging infection, but also that it had probably broken out of the prostate and metastasized. And metastatic prostate cancer is the second leading cause of death among men in the United States. He had heart disease. So at that point, he thought, okay, I need to do something about this. He's at this doc-in-the-box place, this urgent care center, and they said, as they were processing his $200-300 payment as he was leaving, they said, we can sign you up for a Medicare Advantage plan that is provided by the company that owns this hospital. And it won't cost you a penny. It's a $0 plan. And so he was like, cool, okay, sign me up. And so he signs up for Medicare Advantage. He then starts calling around, and so now he's got insurance. So he thinks, okay, I'll go find a surgeon or I'll find a prostate expert who can tell me what's going on. He starts calling around. He finds out that the top prostate cancer people in the country were at Sloan Kettering Memorial in New York City. And so he makes an appointment there. They say, do you have insurance? He says, yeah, I've got Medicare. They're like, okay, cool, we'll see you when you get here. He shows up a month or so later, and lo and behold, his Medicare Advantage program doesn't pay for Sloan Kettering. In fact, none of the Medicare Advantage programs in New York City pay for Sloan Kettering. None of them. Because, hey, it's the highest quality, but it's also the most expensive. So then he tries to get off Medicare Advantage and discovers that once you're on Medicare Advantage, if you try to go back to regular Medicare and buy one of those Medigap policies that fills in that 20% gap that was put there by those racist Southern senators who told LBJ they wanted a bar for black people to jump over, that if you try to sign up for Medicare, regular Medicare, no problem, you can do that. At least you can do that in the fall and between October and January during that open registration period. But if you want to get a Medigap policy so you don't end up with a $100,000 surgery with a $10,000 or $20,000 bill that you have to pay. If you want to get a Medigap policy, while they cannot consider pre-existing conditions when you turn 65 and you first sign up, they can consider pre-existing conditions if you're coming back from Medicare Advantage, and they can simply refuse to insure you. So he's looking at having Medicare pay for his surgery, but basically planning on going bankrupt when the bill comes for the 20%. That's where we're at. And this was all to make sure that when we move to Medicare for All, or if we move to Medicare for All, there's still a place for the health insurance industry. And now about a third of people over 65 have bought the sales pitch and are on these private for-profit Medicare Advantage plans rather than on real Medicare, thinking that they have Medicare. when they don't. It's just a brand. It's just a label, Medicare Advantage. It's not real Medicare.